pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Huh? Are we recording over there?
We are recording.
We are recording. All right. Very good. So, this is a special meeting, so it doesn't have all the elements of a regular meeting. I'd like to welcome you, and we're going to start right off with the 24-25 budget. First item regarding the budget is the staffing plan. And
Well, some
haven't received
discussion.
anything, right?
I'm sorry.
I said we haven't received anything. I didn't see anything online or anything.
There's some updates about staffing. Some of them will come into play when we're talking about the budget, but there's just some staffing updates that the board needs to be aware of. You might have noticed in the agenda down toward the end, there's an action item related to approval of plans of support for teachers with OTF placements. When Lisa was running an end-of-year report, she was notified that the district needs to file with OSBI, one of our closing reports, and there needs to be a record of the board approving a plan of support for teachers who are either teaching out of placement or have a limited conditional certificate. And 3 of our teachers have or had a limited conditional certificate. One of them is very own Liz Brooks here, started the year on short notice under a conditional certificate, and then completed her certification program and has since received her residency certificate. But because she had it operating under a conditional certificate for part of the year, this is required. Our music instructor, Margaret McCarney, has a conditional certificate and submits and is approved for a certain number of credit hours of professional development to renew that eligibility for conditional certification.
But she's got a lot of years of teaching.
Yeah, and this is something that she's done on a regular basis, every 2 years, completing professional development related to her fields or value, and that allows her to be eligible to renew. Third is our art instructor, Candy Giles, who also has a operating under conditional certificate, while her residency certificate from Missouri is being transferred, and there's some professional development required to be eligible for that. So she's also operating under conditional certificate.
And this is her first year, is that right?
Yes, there's no year 1. So just reporting that to the board so that you had an understanding of what you were approving under action items.
Okay,
Any questions?
so we'll see a document on that come by later.
Well, I'd be glad to share those if you want, but there just needs to be, there's nothing required of the board other than to acknowledge and approve those plans just reported to you.
Do they need a motion or anything?
Under action items, there will be. So, can you clarify anything about that at this time? Nope.
So that's it for staffing plan?
That is it for that first part. I wanted to follow up on An interest of the board in the last board meeting was an interest in funding and staffing level for the technology position. There was a few things I wanted to report back to the board, because there was a reference to a ULP settlement. And researched that with our business manager, Kristen. And just needed to make sure the board was aware that the staffing level for that position is over 20% higher, over 60% higher. The staffing level is 600 hours currently for this current contract year. The ULP settlement was 432 hours. Just wanted the board to be aware that we're not out of compliance with that ULP.
So what was the last part? We're not what?
We're not out of compliance with the ULP settlement, with the current
Okay.
staffing levels. It was important. It's a fair question to ask.
In compliance.
So reviewed that with Kristen, and just wanted the board to be assured of that.
So now I have a question. The job description that is attached to the union agreement, is that an accurate, current, fits with the 600 hours?
That is a job description that was mutually agreed upon with Mr. Dyer and myself and a PSE representative a few years ago for that position.
Okay.
And I can say that the staffing level for that position has increased twice over the past 4 years.
Okay,
So now related to that, in a conversation with Kristen about this, she offered to assist with some research if the board is interested in for staffing levels for similar sized districts. She works with small districts. That's all she works with. So she said it wouldn't be too much work for her to provide some data to the board for what staffing levels for a similar type position are in similar sized districts around the state. So that's something she'll be able to provide if the board is interested.
Who's
And-
Kristen?
Kristen is our,
she's our
business manager.
ESD.
Yeah.
She does our finances for us, and we don't see her very often, but every once in a while she zooms in. I think I've seen her zoom in once, maybe.
no, that is outside of her contract
Oh, okay.
with us through E ESD.
So I think one of the things I'm concerned about on that position is I know that at the end of the year here, we had one of the teachers that had some serious issues with the technology being able to load up the testing sites and stuff. So my question is, I know that when school first starts, we have quite a demand for tech support. And then it's basically sort of like on call almost, but so many hours a week. But do we make sure we have enough hours at the end of the year to cover those kind of critical situations?
So that schedule that is set
With the union?
allows with Mr. Dyer. And so that is set with his input
Okay,
for where he has the most interest, where he believes he has the most need. And so that's something that has been worked out collaboratively with Mr. Dyer for several years. And also that doesn't include additional projects as they have come up through the year.
so you can add those if you want.
Those are, yeah, project hours are outside,
Okay,
and he's done a great job of reporting that separately.
So are we gonna have a discussion later about
I'm,
all this?
Well,
once we get into budget, we can see some things within the context of that, and I think that'd be a best place to have that conversation. I'm just reporting to the board a few things.
okay,
But-
we're not into the budget yet.
No.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's see if it comes up, but make a note if something comes up that we don't talk about, so ask it.
The one vacancy that we are anticipating for next school year is the K-12 teacher position. We posted that position on the ESD 112 website and a NeoGov site that is linked through ESD 112 social
You know,
media.
I don't know
Posted
if I
direct-
did it right, Bob, but when I found it on our website, it didn't link to the job description like you have on the ESD website. You've got a nice full description of the position. And so that's something maybe to double check. So do we know for sure that she's only going to be gone for the one school year? Is that? Did she let us know in writing yet what she's planning? Okay,
Well, the requirement for a leave of absence is that be submitted to the district in writing, and she has
Okay.
submitted that request for the entire school year next
yeah,
year.
so is she committed to coming back for, oh my gosh, what is it, 25, 26?
And every contract, every certificated employee operates on a 1-year contract.
Okay,
And so at this point,
we don't know.
all she's obligated to say is that she's requested a leave of absence for
Okay,
that year.
all right.
Your perspective can change.
Well, I realize
Life
that.
changes.
If I had a baby, I would come back, but.
So there has been some interest, but there has not been application received for that position.
I think I received one and I sent it to Lisa. Gave it to Lisa.
That's good to know.
I don't know why I got it, but I did.
Um,
I don't know the person, so.
Also, and within the context and staffing levels, and this might be a better conversation to have within the context of budget, but I mean, budget or not is not really the issue at this point, but one of our part-time teachers who serves both schools was under our art instructor, Ms. Giles, was under a 0.4 contract this current year. And with the courses that are scheduled for her to teach for PCIA and the art classes for MAS and for the required prep times for those, that staffing level is the only staffing level that needs to be increased to a 0.5. And so you'll see that. Well, actually, you won't necessarily see that in the budget, but it's a must-have.
So
In
does
order-
that, I remember you saying something about triggering some kind of benefits or something. At what point does that happen?
And that does happen at 0.5.
Okay, that's what I was.
So do you want to just take that and roll that conversation now into budget?
Yep, that's the next item on the agenda. Let's roll. So can you refresh my memory before you start, because you gave us this presentation a while back. So the MAS program, that's funded through something rather than our regular budget.
That's some of the last of our ESSER COVID relief funds.
Okay,
It's still in our budget. The funds are.
I love this big sheets. Look at that. There's an
Managed
extra.
to get it all on one page.
Is there an extra?
I think there's one left.
Maybe they can circle it around it.
So there's a few notable differences highlighted. That line, 126,876, that to notice by comparison to the current year is higher. And that would include the district funds that would be needed to provide 2 all-day paraeducators. So that line is just paraeducators. If we increase, we have 1 all-day and 1 part-day. They're both full-day, and that's the cost to the district.
And so what would those 2 paraeducators be doing? And that's different than this paraeducator under this program. Right?
Well, both of our paraeducators are funded, would be, in this scenario, be funded in part using our Title I Part A funds or LAP, Learning Assistance Program funds. But that wouldn't be enough for 2 full-day paraeducators. So the district will need to contribute funds to have that second paraeducator be a full-day para.
And so were we moving to full day? Well, we already have 1 full day, right?
Yes.
And the other one part, do they have different responsibilities next year? Or what's the purpose of the second one going full time? Do you have a specific task?
This is supporting students in classrooms, supporting teachers and students in the classroom.
Thought that's what the
That's,
board had decided they wanted.
Pardon?
I thought that was a discussion in previous meetings that,
Oh, I totally support it. I just wanted to know if there was some specific tasking that we're identifying, because we specifically asked for it so that they could tutor or provide other assistance for children who need that assistance.
Mhm.
And so that's my question.
Yeah.
What's their task?
that's exactly what it would be.
Okay.
but we're not gonna know that until we have our students next year to know which.
Well, which students is the question.
students.
At this point, this is a staffing level
Mhm.
and a budget related conversation. The board needs to know that increase would do 2 things. It would, and it's not a bad thing. It's not, it is, but increasing that staffing, increasing that second para position beyond the grant funds that have funded it entirely
So that
this year.
that half would be our own. Okay.
That's right. Yep, some of it would come out of the district budget, and part of that would be the benefits that it would qualify for. The next highlighted cell, IT. That increase reflects an increase from 2.5 hours per contract a day to 3 hours per contract a day. That's a total of 120 additional contracted hours. And that also qualifies that position to be eligible for benefits. And that's why it was almost doubles. Because of the eligibility for benefits. That's
So
just, as soon as any employee who's part-time qualifies for benefits, that's another 14,000.
So 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week, that takes it up to benefits.
It's not necessarily 15 hours a week, unless of course the district decides that it's a flat position.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
same
3
every
hours.
week.
I
There's
thought you
a
said
total
3
number,
hours a
but this
day.
particular position's had a total number of hours that has been scheduled to reflect the certain times of the year where there's greater need. But there's an increase of an additional 120 hours would increase the cost for the district from 27,000 to just over 50,000.
And we pro rata, holidays and stuff like that?
Everything like that is defined in the PSECD.
Okay,
So. Um. The. The only other highlighted cell there, down toward the bottom, just says $20,000. There has been discussion. About. Having a certified teacher. Part-time. Manage the library. That, if that were the case, then it would cost approximately, this is a ballpark here, because who that may or may not be, it's undefined, but that would, if it was a certified teacher, would, if it was a part-time certified teacher, and this was an increase to their staffing levels, sub-levels, it would likely cost approximately $20,000. So there's a lot of unknowns there, but this is something that has been discussed in the past, but hasn't really impacted the bottom line. Speaking of line, the blue line going across, so up from the bottom just a little bit, facility maintenance, remodel repair, this has been a set aside line item by the district for many years. Just about since the board started using the budget worksheet. But that line is now 0. And if you go to the very bottom, impact to the general fund balance. After next year, that's approximately 20,000, 21,000 in the red going forward.
What is the proposed staffing increase new programs for 23-24?
That was the library position, if that was assigned to a certified teacher.
But what is it for 23-24 for last year?
You asking what that 25,000 is?
Yeah.
Where are you looking at?
That's.
K8.
25,000 right there. What is it this year? That's a question, right?
Yeah, I just don't understand why you have. Maybe something.
Well, no, that's a fair question. Man. I don't remember why we had that there when there were no staffing increases for the current year.
That number's more than the next 5 years too.
Well, it wasn't on there. That 25,000 wasn't there. I don't know what version this is, but when you gave her a short version, it didn't go all the way out. It's not down there. I had a question mark there, actually.
Yeah, I'll ask Kristen
I
about
didn't
that. I
write
don't.
any other notes, so I'm sorry.
No, I'll ask Kristen about that. I don't recall why that was there or what that was. There was no additional staffing increases.
Well, like Anita said, I don't remember that being there in previous versions. May have just been a.
I'll check with Kristen about that. Yeah, so from what she provided, only changes I made were taking out, so there was the, that blue line of the facility maintenance remodel repair set aside. There were previous values in there, 40,000. I have that here. 40,000, 30,000, 35,000 in the past. So, just at this point, the board has asked for increases. The board did not necessarily ask for the librarian position, but because it's something that had been talked about, that's just one of the things that needed to be quantified to see, are these things sustainable? And not all three of them are sustainable. Because the bottom line is red, we're in the red, in the hole, 20 to 21,000 every year. So it just provides the board that information. Those three changes, the increase to the educator position, increase to the IT position, having a teacher, this would be an increase to a teacher staffing level to manage the library, which is not how it's been managed in the past. In the past, it's simply just been like a supplemental contract.
What does that mean?
Like something extra that's done outside of the regular school day. Kind of like coaching, coaching is, it happens after school. And anything like that is a supplemental contract.
Where they get paid? For 20 grand?
Yes,
So
but
it's
all
not
of the
been
work had to happen outside of the school day. It was during negotiation with the teachers union, there was interest expressed in having that position staffed during the day by a certified teacher. So all I'm doing is providing the board that information.
That wasn't our cost previously. The last thing we had paid 20 grand before.
No,
That wasn't the
No.
size of the supplemental contract.
no, that was not the size of the supplemental contract. Supplemental contract was just a few $1,000s. And that all of that work, has been done by Mr. Durham for the past several years. And that all has to happen outside of the regular school day. And it's happened during summer, it's happened in afternoons and evenings, has happened in weekends, it's happened outside of the school day.
So
So are you saying that, we can't afford, the budget's not gonna be able to afford all three of these in the yellow? Is that basically what you're saying?
That is what this shows,
Okay, so
if the board is gonna operate in the black.
just out of curiosity, the school gets a lot of funding from the state, right? MASD. Do you get funding from the state? Or where do you get your funding from? Not all.
The district, almost all of the funding, like 95% of the funding is from the state.
From the.
Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
Anyway, so from my understanding is it's a numbers game. So it's, how many students, gives you, and it works into blocks. Where your numbers of students gives you, a certain amount of funding, correct? Basically, it,
So there is some of the funding is
Okay.
related to the number of students we have. Some of the funding we have is just to operate the school. And there's some of that for both MAS and then a separate chunk just for PCIA,
Right.
just to operate the school.
right, so,
Yeah.
so my question is, how much growth would you need to get more funding for MAS?
You know, we ran that analysis a couple of years ago. Our interest, my interest, I was really hopeful that we could get just 2 grade levels in a classroom. So that means that we would need
That's how it
enough,
used to be.
we would need enough funding to have 1 extra teacher. And what we found out when we ran that analysis at the time is that we needed to have a minimum of 80 students in the school,
The elementary school.
in the elementary school, just in the K through 8, to have enough
In districts. too.
additional income to have a 3rd teacher, have a 4th teacher.
So how many kids do you have in the school right now? So how many
In the
shorter?
grades,
So we're in 40 to 45,
So you'd almost have to double.
and all of that growth would likely come from out of district.
Which is a whole different formula.
Not necessarily, no. But
So it
the
doesn't have to be in
and-
district students.
Eric, I mean, you were on the board at that time. I don't know if you remember some of the conversations or about the value to the students and to the school, but you can contribute there.
If I remember right, like our costs, if, before that, our costs go up quite a bit. Because in the small district funding model, there's a minimum level of funding, no matter how many kids you have.
Sure.
And, I think we don't even start getting additional funds or much.
Only MSOCs. The only increase would be MSOCs until we were over 70 or 75. And then the formula changed.
Right.
So you're actually looking at 70, 75. And then our formula would change, so our finances would increase, basically. So you're getting close to having that 4th teacher.
so we need 30 more kids.
Of that.
Would the school be able to sustain 30 more kids?
We don't have a classroom right now.
As I recall, and Eric, I mean, you probably remember more, but if I remember correctly, the board was questioning the benefit to the in-district students. There can be a benefit to having the school be more than just a tiny school. I mean, at the time, there was a time in the late teens when there were 20, 25, there were fewer than 30 students in the whole school. And the board actually established a policy at that time,
We did.
an enrollment goal and a cap on MAS enrollment.
Well,
Do you
the
want us to do
issue,
that?
We actually increased the cap to have more. Part of what we were looking at is, we were gonna have to go up, still have multi-grade classrooms, 2 grade classrooms, but we're gonna have to go up to have those classrooms over 20 students per classroom rather than 12 to 15, 16 per classroom to even get close to that. So we're gonna have bigger multi-grade classrooms than we do currently. But there would be fewer grades.
well, the problem with doing that, not only do you have to have 4 classrooms and 4 teachers and all the support stuff, but because we don't have anywhere near enough in-district students, all that increase is out-of-district students. And based on our reputation, they often are students who are going to we would need additional paraeducators, additional special educators. And you don't have any reliability or sustainability, so you could have 75 one year and yeah, right, the state funding would pour in so much per student. You drop below 70, 75, and all of a sudden they're only giving you the same funding you got when you only had 32 students. So there's no reliability that you're going to have that level of students with that level of funding every year. And then the additional resources you need to support those classrooms and those students are critical. we can't have students that we can't address the needs for. So that's part of the whole reason why we went down to only in-district students, and then how many out-of-district students could we take and still not go above the funding level that we get funding for right now. Does that make sense?
And like you said, the space has now been, the 4 classrooms are not 4 classrooms that would allow those number of students, because we've taken and.
And so, you know, we can look at other creative ways, depending on, you know, it does change a bit each year as students move up in a grade. And we can look at different ways of maybe at, you know, some point during the day or several times a week, moving students from here or there, or having a separate classroom for a specific need. And, you know, use the library or use the cafeteria or something, but as far as going to a 4-room school, yeah, but that's really tough.
But have we maintained our, like, calculator that Angela did on that front?
No, Kristen has continued to upgrade that. And because she's confirmed that it's extremely accurate at this point.
I think that's kind of
What was your question?
the calculator that Angela did that helps, see what our funding looks like at different enrollment levels.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really where we started the budget conversation, by talking about our revenue sources, and we used the budget calculator estimator tool to do that.
Well, the reason why I bring this up is I don't know if anybody looked at where MAS is in the school as far as grades wise right now. We don't look good.
As far as the budget worksheet, Kristen has simply added the values to reflect the questions or the interests of the board as she understood it. And being able to see the impact to the bottom line, I think, is where Kristen will need some additional direction. When the board is considering staffing levels, the board is considering a budget. There are staffing levels. Staffing levels are typically requested or established by the superintendent, and the board approves the budget or not. But at this point, this is going to be the first time in a long time where there seems to be a negative dollar amount on the bottom line with no set aside for facilities. So there's 0 set aside for facility savings.
Well, one of the questions, so down there by that 25,000 under proposed staffing increases that we don't know why it's there, right above that is 25,000. That's part of the legal costs. Do you think that other 25 just got in there by accident, since it's coincident?
I don't want to guess. I have a note to ask Kristen about it, when I
And
can
so-
report to the board via email.
So we have that 25,000 totally under the 9 through 12. But it really was for all teachers, so does it make any difference which column it's in?
Again, I don't know why she had that there.
Well, no, I meant the one above that, the legal
Talking about
expense.
legal.
For legal expense,
Probably should be allocated.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter which column it's in. No,
Okay, and
it doesn't.
And the same thing up under ESD 112 Business Manager, if it doesn't matter, but all the other years we have it under the K through 8 column, and in 24, 23, 24, we have it under the 9 through 12 column.
Oh.
I guess if it doesn't matter, then
Well,
some places it probably does matter and some places it doesn't.
Well, the separation was to keep track of what would our expenses be if PCIA ever went away, if we lost our partner, what were our expenses gonna be if we run the?
I just was looking for
Mhm.
consistency.
No,
Is what she called, yeah,
It's under
she had
pacing all the
actually-
other years.
she had actually, started to dismantle the 23-24 and her best version of the spreadsheet. And, was kind of rearranging things in a way that that she thought worked better. And made more sense, and then she had to kind of rebuild it. With your request to keep the 23-24 in there, so she must have been an oversight on her part, that the business manager was in.
Well,
the right
it's really
column instead of the
nice
left.
to have the 23, but so this order is probably different than what she reports on us as a budget update, so I can see that.
So,
And then, there's more attorney costs under board of directors for this year. And then there's some of them are under, superintendent somewhere or other, not sure where.
I mean, historically, for many years, there has been a small amount in the board budget, so the board had some resources available if they wanted to ask an attorney to provide a review related to policy. That's how the board has used it historically, in the years that I've been here at least.
How many hours a week do they do in the library management?
Are you asking about,
I'm asking about the 20,000 one that's stepping.
yep, that would be a half day or maybe a full day teacher here in the library during the school day, and that's, so you're like, how much time would that be? Yeah, that would be either a half day in the library during the school day or a full day in the library during the school day.
What do they do?
As I recall, as it was suggested, during negotiations, like, a class could be brought to the library. And the librarian could manage the students while they were here in the library, providing the teacher some additional prep time. Where the teacher librarian would be responsible for the students during that time. They would manage all of the checking out of books, reading materials to students. The most recent proposal was that social emotional learning could be incorporated with that. And that's basically the best as I understand it, what a teacher librarian would do during the school. But
It doesn't have to be a certified employee, does it? We could hire someone else.
it does not. The teacher would have to stay.
I mean, if we hired someone
If,
someone just for
right,
the.
yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of times it was done by volunteers too.
Yes, yeah, the only difference there, yeah, is that, the teacher would stay with the class during that time.
So if we had a non-certified person running the library, the students cannot come in unless the teacher comes with them.
Yeah, there needs to be a certified teacher.
Well, there's not a certified teacher with them at recess. Why do they have to be with them in the library? Is that a silly question?
Well, yeah, recess is different than during instructional time.
Well, they're not learning anything. They're just checking out books.
Well, when we report to the state that this is during the instructional day, then yeah, there needs to be a teacher supervising those students.
Well, that's very interesting.
And yes,
Thank you,
recess,
state.
yeah, recess is different. But as far as the state is concerned, so when we report our calculations of instructional hours to the State Board of Education. And yes, the expectation.
But I know
is
that
the
we've had
teachers are there.
volunteers do it, so when a volunteer is here doing it, we can't have students come in.
Well,
Unless a
that's-
teacher comes with them.
Well, I'm saying if the entire class comes,
Oh, the entire,
that's, right.
okay. Hmm,
So I'm not suggesting that, I'm not promoting that, it's one of the things that is discussed, but again, all three of those can't happen if the board is committed to operating a budget, a sustainable budget in the black. Sustainable budget.
One more question about that.
Well, it's.
So
yeah.
if the teacher comes in and she brings her whole class in here, do we need a librarian here? Can the teacher just do it?
But as they have for the past several years. Yep.
Okay, it's just
That
part of the responsibility, just another class like math, English and reading or something. The Library, they
The
come to the
teachers-
library.
Teachers they've coordinated amongst themselves so that they know when each of them has scheduled some time
Okay,
in the library for their class and they bring their class. And they, as teachers, with the new system that Mrs. Durham has set up, is now able to like manage the books, their students, their class, checking books out.
How often does that happen? How much time do the kids spend in the library?
Can I just, yeah, Mrs. Durham, you would be the best suited to describe this.
Yeah, the way it works is the teachers schedule the time.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you come
The
close?
the teachers schedule times to be in the library, and it's typically about an hour a week. Is when they're able to schedule that time, so they block that time for them, so nothing else is happening in the library during that time. So they can bring their class into the library and they can check out books. It's a self-managed checkout, so the teacher is able to check out the books. Or the students are able to check out the books at this time, because it's digital. Because I spent many, many hours this summer setting up this new digital system. Where they scan their book and they check it out for themselves.
So it's booked about 3 hours a week, an hour for each classroom?
Yes, currently, yeah, an hour for each classroom. Now, the teacher doesn't necessarily have to spend that whole hour in here. But that's their block of time that they're allotted to come into the library. They can bring their whole class, they can do research projects, they can find books, they can check out books. And that block of time is blocked for that classroom once a week. If they have other things to do, they don't have to come in. If they do want to come in, or if they want extra time in the classroom, we have to make those arrangements to make sure the library isn't being used for something else. Students can come check their books in independently as well. So they don't have to bring the whole class in to check their books in. It's all here, it's all set up, it's all capable. And students, as a matter of fact, do come in, check out their own books and return their own books. The time that I spend mostly, that I have the whole system set up, the time that I spend is about an hour a week. That supplemental contract gives me about an hour a week outside of classroom time. And I come in and I re-shelf books. All of these books here still need to be put into the system. So I'm slowly at putting these books into the system. If we replace books, I have to put those into the system. If we have overdue notices that need to go home, that's my job. So I make sure that our book collection stays our book collection. So those books go home and they come back. And they get checked back in and put back on the shelf, so they're ready for the next person.
So you do about 1 hour a week?
About an hour a week, yes. The setup was a lot longer than, but
I'm sure, yeah, sure.
currently it's about an hour a week.
So if the teacher brings kids in here and the teacher needs to go do something else, can a para-educator be in here? I'm just trying to look for ways to save 20 grand, because we're 21 grand in risk.
teachers are not supposed to leave their class. During the instructional day, they're not supposed to leave their class. Unless another certified teacher is
So grant
supervising.
would be no.
Yeah,
So it's not, it's 20 grand. If, say we cut it in half, does that take care of our issue with the, fund?
there's another. Well. At this point. You look at the bottom line. That would take care, that would. Take care of about half of that 21,000 in the red.
So you're on 21 million, but that's not until 25-6. I'm looking at 6.5, which is that.
Yeah, there's another proposal is that the library continue to be staffed and maintained as it has been for the past several years, and that would be under a supplemental contract for a teacher to manage the library outside of the regular day, like Mr. Durham has done for the past several years. That would be, we're estimating here less than 5 grand, in the ballpark of 5 grand, something like that. So where the library could be maintained in the way that it has, but all of that is work outside of the regular school day.
Right, and that cost is shown up here where salaries are. It's not down here, under this line.
That would be supplemental contracts are.
Right.
Yes, those are included. In this really big. These really
The
big
giant
numbers
numbers.
right here, those giant numbers.
The supplemental contract.
Yeah.
Is already budgeted for in the existing budget.
Mm,
Although I think we're offering really a supplemental contract to every teacher. Is that?
Well, there's different supplemental contracts. There's the supplemental contracts for additional days. And then there's supplemental contracts for additional responsibilities, science club, robotics club, ASD advisor, library manager has been a supplemental contract.
Peter,
Um,
a few years ago.
I don't think that there has been a theater position. So, and those.
There was, wasn't there?
Mhm.
You did it. I remember, right?
But I
Oh,
haven't-
yeah, there was a.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, we did. Jennifer did it.
1 year. So that is another possibility. That would obviously be much more affordable.
But that particular supplemental contract was not taken out of the budget as well, so we kind of doubled
That supplemental contract,
the library.
that the library manager position, so that was not included in the current collective bargaining agreement.
So then it's not in this.
And it's not in the budget.
I don't think it's in the budget.
Okay, so if you didn't have that 20,000, but did the other, there's still another that'd be a $15,000.
There'd be a approximately $15,000 difference. Yeah, which is getting us much closer to the right direction.
Just out of curiosity, who writes our grants?
Well, Kristen, she's supporting like the Title I, Title II, Title V, she's supporting that. And which has been a huge relief. In the past, I had to do all of that in the past. So she's taken that on this year. The other grants, like any other capital projects related grants, I've done all of that kind of stuff.
So you don't contract out somebody to look into the different, grants to write.
Well, what happens is, there's grants, when those funds are made available by legislation, then those notices are sent out to the business managers and all the superintendents or the other district level administrators in the larger districts, just making the districts aware, hey, there is now grant opportunity in iGrants. So there's this platform that the state uses for this interface between the districts and an Indo SPI. When there are grant opportunities available, we don't have to go fishing because the money is approved by the state. And then they say, hey, there's an opportunity. Apply for this if you want to.
So I have a,
Mhm.
so under, would you remind me again what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line down, seventh line down, CTE program?
Yes.
CTE supplies. That
Yes.
must be some kind of special whatever funding, because it's going way down in the future years.
Well, so the budget, now mind you, that 23-24 was a 23-24 budget. And the current year, this year that we're in, we're just finishing, was the first year of our CTE program. And as it was submitted to the state said, oh, you're gonna have one CTE teacher, boom, this much money. But yes, we have one CTE teacher, but we have just a few CTE classes. That's career tech ed.
Okay,
Career tech ed, where it's a huge umbrella. I mean, it could be wood shop, metal shop, automotive, nursing, teaching prep. Because we have Mr. Hawkins, our CTE program is technology based. It's all computer science and robotics. So over the course of the year, the state realized that the money that they said we might get is actually a lot less.
Okay.
Because there's fewer classes and fewer students in that program. So really what we're seeing in the 24-25 is the actual.
okay,
So we didn't get all of that money, nor could we spend all of the money that it shows in 23-24. They were just saying at the time of budget, oh, hey, this is what we think you're gonna get. And it ended up being nothing close to that at all. But
So then
again, we
if
just spent.
we jump
what we
down to
received.
professional development, it's much higher in future years, and I totally support professional development. But do we have some specific obligations that we're budgeting for in the future years to take those numbers up much higher?
Um, I'm looking for that.
It's,
We're at 8,200 in the budget for 23-24, and we're at 26,000 and growing from 24 on.
Sorry, in between the two yellows, the top two yellows.
Okay,
you find it,
yep.
I don't see that blank line on yours up there. That's how I orient myself here. Cause there's a blank line across there.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Cap loan reimbursement.
It's right there.
You just need glasses.
Apparently so, cause I see numbers in all the lines up there. That's weird. Oh, I
Okay.
found it. For pity's sake, I don't do good on those word games, do I?
So let me. This
Are we
is,
spending
no, I
more
see what
this
you're
year
saying.
than
No, I
the
totally
budget
see
is?
what you're saying. Like, why when it seems to be approximately, it was a little over 8,000 the current year, why does it show 27,000?
And growing.
I might,
A little bit.
yep,
Sure.
I'm gonna guess, and
We might be spending more
well,
this year. 'cause
no,
this
I'm,
is a
I'm,
big
I'm
deal.
gonna guess that this is one of the ways that Kristen finds some things going forward. And so that, what we're seeing in the 24-25 doesn't exactly line up with the 23-24. Let me ask her. And, but that's the only thing that makes sense, because I know we didn't increase the professional development level that much from the current year to next year. I think that this is a combination of rows.
So you're saying that 24-25 and thereon is more correct?
Well, I think it's gonna be, I think that it's not actually more. I think that it's a couple different things from the previous years that she combined into one row. But I can get that confirmed.
Is it,
Mhm.
if it's not, if next year and the year after and the year after is too high, then that could be our portion of our over balance.
Yeah, because I don't see anything in future years that's lower where she would have taken it from. So maybe it's some new cost or something that she knows about.
I don't believe so, but
We bumped IT supplies up 40%. That move from the staff and student. It's, we get shifting lines between the iPads and computers on the IT supplies.
But the supplies isn't going down.
Well, it looks like ESD contract costs are gonna go up quite a bit too. That's a
Pretty much all
significant
of it.
increase.
some of the,
So we need some
Hold on.
answers from Kristen on several things here.
It's hard to prioritize.
The superintendent supplies, service travel dropped down quite a bit.
So that's because there's some attorney costs there, I think.
so the ESD 112 contracts. There is an increase in the communications retainer services, and don't let me forget to show you something at the end of the meeting if you'd like. But the only other increase was a contract 3,400 for instructional coaching.
Okay,
Everything else is just increased.
and that's a good program they've got there, that instructional
So
coaching.
here we go. The difference between the current year ESD 112 contracts and next year's expected contracts is $2,239 for all of them. That's the increase from this year to next year. Other
Doesn't
than
add up.
an increase to the communications and public relations contract and the instructional coaching contract.
We have a public relations contract with them.
We contract with them for really PCIA promotion. We use them for recruiting. And
Do they create the website then? Is that one of the things
They-
they do?
well, they manage the PCIA website
Okay,
and all of our social media promotion,
'cause we need some brochures,
flyers,
yeah, flyers.
all of those flyers, all of the promotional mailers, all of that ESD 112, public relations and communications. Yeah,
So Bob,
yep,
can you bump IT supplies 40%?
I don't know anything about that, but I can,
Which one is that?
IT supplies materials goes from 10,000 to 14,000.
I don't know anything about that. I can get clarity.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
And if that reflects our actual costs or it's just built in.
Well, along that line, we're probably gonna have to look at some new technology equipment here in a year or two, but is there any grant opportunities we can keep our ear out on that line?
I haven't seen anything like that. Well,
What kind of cycle do we have our
under,
computer? It's a 3-year, 4-year?
we've been, hold on. I don't know if the modernization grant might be able to do anything other than like replacing screens. So these screens are probably 6, 7 years old. So in the modernization grant application, it's a replacement of all of these with large new smart screens. It would be like a smart whiteboard and a large
Can
speed
I
TV combined.
Can I, how old are the tech equipment your students are using that you had a lot of trouble with this year?
Let's ask the tech person.
Those machines in K8 are, older machines, but we recently purchased them on used surplus out of another district. So I expect another year or two out of them. So I believe they're 2017, 2016 machines that were currently running.
For Jennifer's
Okay.
class where she couldn't get the test uploaded right away?
No, there was just a change in the operating system, and in the old operating system you used to use, you did it one way, and the new way you had to do it a completely different way. So that's what slowed that whole
So it
process.
wasn't the age of the
It
equipment?
wasn't, it was just
Okay.
we're caught in between two versions of
Okay.
it.
Excuse me, Bob, I knew that they were having some trouble in that classroom, but I didn't know what the trouble was.
It's Doug found a fantastic deal and some really good MacBooks. He has them set up. So that was a huge upgrade. The purchase of those was a huge upgrade of the previous laptops for that class. So let me just make sure that I'm not missing something. That questions that Kristen needs to provide clarity on is the professional development. That line item and about why it seems so much higher. I mean, I expect for it to be a confirmation that it is a combination of multiple lines now in a single line, but she'll provide an explanation for that. Question about the IT supplies, why is it 40% higher?
Well, you can tell her we do appreciate it fitting on one sheet.
But if it's so
Well-
hard to.
You're welcome.
But yeah, but there is a blank line she can use, right? So now, did I miss your enrollment update? Are we still going with a total of 46 kids in K through 8 next year?
There is. We don't have the results from the most recent
Okay,
survey. PCIA is expected to still be in the mid-20s.
okay, I think we're,
MAS, we're
we
still
have
expecting
28
to be in
on
the
here.
40 to 45 range.
yeah, if you have 20 out of here, I think we'll be 1 or 2 less than that, maybe. But this is
Which-
the last one you provided us.
The most recent is PCIA enrollment is around approximately 26, so
Okay.
we're still in that mid-20s range.
Okay.
Is there something else related to the budget that you would like for Kristen to provide for the board prior to the next meeting?
I'm sure there is, I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed right now, I think.
So our actuals to budget.
Pardon, sorry, I just wanted to ask you a very quick. 46, if it's below that, we got people on a waiting list to come in. So we just
Well,
bring
that,
it back up, it's slow, right? In the middle A school. If you don't get one.
What was your question?
She asked you if the 46 students were, still coming back next year, and you said you don't know, we gotta wait for the income. So I'm saying if it's short, we got people on a waiting list to get in here, don't we?
Oh, the other part of what I said is that we are still expecting the 40 to 45 for the MAS.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yep,
and 46 is kind of high, isn't that pretty up at our maximum?
it is. Yeah, it is. So what I meant to say, Bill, is, so, Lisa and Ms. Herman sent out a survey to all the families who have kids enrolled here now. So the policy that we have and the procedure related to that, it establishes a priority for who should get to come back. Well, students who are here get first priority to come back next year.
Makes sense.
And then it just lays out this sequencing of, well, who's next? Who would get next priority? And that's something that the board worked on to us to kind of define that process. So, and included in that policy is the enrollment cap, the enrollment limit for the two schools. With allowing for exceptions if it's the determination that any additional students would be a benefit to the school. So, would you like me to share that policy, just so you can see that process, and would that be a good thing to revisit?
It was a hard cap, but we changed it because it was like the cap on the total number of students, and we realized, well, it doesn't make sense, right? First of all, we have to allow all in-district kids to come in, and then if you have like 12 kids in one classroom, and additional kids are wanting to come into that classroom, then the total number of students isn't the big determining factor, it's can the classroom they're going to handle them coming in.
But the cap was so that we didn't have too many more students than we got funding for. That's why we had the cap originally.
Right, and then that got relaxed as we saw opportunity for,
Mhm. Because that cap was before PCIA.
yes, it was.
There was another part of the conversation, and that is looking for the sweet spot of additional students being a benefit to the school, but not being a burden. We want the benefit to be greater than the cost. And at a certain point, if you continue adding students, then the benefit of the in-district students becomes diminished.
Mhm.
And so I think the board was looking to kind of find a sweet spot there. But yeah, I'll share that. It's called non-resident enrollment. So you see that.
Well, because of the 3 grades per classroom, when those numbers get up higher, then our money's going out to more full-time paras or tutors.
The last item, I'm sorry, is when the board's ready, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't leave budget without this conversation. That Kristen shared with the board. I forwarded in that email about Kristen's recommendation that during this budget cycle, that the board consider taking some of the general fund monies and transferring them to the capital projects. She recommended $100,000 to $200,000. In her interest is just setting the district up in a position so that if and when we receive those large grant funds for the modernization program, that will have monies all ready to go for her to use. Because she said a lot of those are, the district had to spend the money and then we get reimbursed. So she's just trying to set the district up. In that. But
Well,
I think that she's going to need some direction from the board. And so that when the budget hearing takes place, there's an understanding. She said this is the natural time to do it. It can happen outside of the budget. Can happen outside of this budget process, but it's a really, really complicated process. This is the only easy time to make that move.
And sometimes is that funding that we might get have to be used within a certain period of time? Again, a commitment from us to get the projects going, and if we don't have the funds, then we can't. I mean, sometimes I've seen that, but I don't know.
The board could authorize the movement of funds mid-year. It's just really messy and complicated. Since we're anticipating to be awarded some grant funds, she's just trying to set the district up. So this, on the money side, this is what she needs.
Anticipating doesn't mean you're gonna get it though, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but budgeting doesn't mean you have to spend it
Also, they're moving it over, but you won't spend it yet.
unless you get the grant,
You
you
can
know that you're gonna have the money coming in.
We didn't used to be able to, that's why it's like, if
Yeah,
you put it
it's
in
different.
capital fund.
Yeah.
In the capital fund, it had to stay there, and you couldn't
move
spend
it
it, we
back.
couldn't move it back
Yeah.
for general purposes. So that's why we kind of didn't put things and lock it up there. But that's changed apparently.
Yeah, we haven't moved money into there unless we had a specific capital project we knew we were gonna do. But now if you move money in there, you can take it back out if you don't spend it. I think it's a good thing to do because we are always under the challenge of being able to explain to the public why we have a large general fund balance. Many school districts in the state have a large general fund balance so that if some disaster occurs, they can carry their school for a year or two. They save enough money to be able to do that. But because of our particular situation, and I probably won't explain it exactly right, Bob, but anyway, if we have a major capital project, most schools have an option through the state to have a one-on-one match of cost. So that the state helps you fund that capital project. We don't have that option. We're very unusual in that we don't get those state matching dollars. So we have always tried to save a lot in our general fund. But that's very hard to explain to the public, especially to a new person who just comes in and sees that big
Right.
amount.
Especially
So when
since
we
it's because
can
of
label
forest
it
fires.
capital, that really shows why the board has been saving the money and what it's saved for. It might be, a new roof, another classroom, or something else. And so I think it's a good idea to move funding into the capital budget now that we can bring it back out. We need to. Before, we never did it because we
Yeah,
couldn't take
because
it back out.
You couldn't take that chance.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just. The other thing I think it's important that we understand as board members is. The one thing on here doesn't show up on the budget. Is federal forest dollars. We don't get those every year. Some years we've had none. It was good, down a lot of years, it's like 22 or 15,000. This year it ended up being 70,000. $70,000 of revenue that's not on this budget. And that is, I think that's important for us to keep in mind that, like, we don't wanna count on that, especially a number like that. But we also have to understand that if we're removing our federal maintenance, remodel, repair, that's where part of the money that's helped us save has come from, and even budget, there still is gonna be something that's gonna come in there most years on those dollars.
When you say it came in this year, you're talking about it came in this last.
This last year, we don't know if we'll get anything.
Well, we're still in this year.
Well, on that note right there, also, your state general purpose calculator, of revenue. this is just an estimate. Is this a precise? Because what I'm seeing is next year's money is more than 25, 26 for MAS. So that's, it's gotta be telling me that this is just an estimation of what we're gonna get.
So Kristen, are you talking about revenue when you said that?
That is.
So Kristen has confirmed this revenue
Or
based-
just next year,
for next year.
no,
Well,
not
well,
5 years.
that's
But
what-
25, 26, it goes down.
Right,
Six
that's
sixty-one.
what I'm saying, after that, it's an estimation.
It is, but it would be, it's based on the numbers at the top. There's rows with percents there.
Right.
So there's IPD and the MSOC increase. So those are estimated by the state.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are gonna change, but.
Something's wrong with it, Bob,
Yep, yep,
because
yep.
we have 661 estimated for K through 8 in 24, 25. And then we have 651 in 25, 26. That doesn't add up.
10,000.
We should be in general, we should be with the same enrollment of 42. In K through 8, we should be expecting, I would expect the 1.9% IPD and MSOC increase to increase our K through 8 funding. Our 9 through 12 funding increases from 1,455 to 1,483. So that is,
And we're losing 10.
then we're losing 10 right there.
Yeah.
So I would expect that to have gone up, 2%, right around $12,000 rather than down 10. Which would put us at close to a break even, what we're looking at here, if that was, I mean, it seems like there's a mistake in this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about? And so, if we're gonna be making decisions about prioritizing and valuing. We get that it's estimates, but that would be another thing to look at, because that definitely.
Well, she's got our non-tax revenues going down almost by half. Local non-tax support revenues. She's not showing any other entity revenue for 24, 25. And,
So all I can
The
say is
adjustment to
that she
reconcile the
has,
budget.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I mean,
She did confirm, I mean, this would have been like a month ago. She did confirm that she did update and verify the calculator for accuracy, but it's a natural question to ask. Why does the revenue seem to be going down that 1 year? And I'll ask him.
Okay.
Good question, asked.
plus
Yeah.
transportation revenues are going down. Did the state change something in what they support?
Unfortunately, they have not changed the STARS formula.
But it's going down like $20,000 between this year and next year. I mean, our income for that,
The revenue,
yeah.
And when you're looking at that, the state general purpose, where it goes down the 10,000, then you look at the next year and it's up to 664, but that's like, well, see, at 661 here goes down, and then it only goes up 3,000 from this year,
Right.
so
Well, the thing is based on this year, so this.
I
one
know.
is-
But then this one goes up quite a bit, and this one goes up. So it's up, but it's down, then up. Or hardly any,
14 up,
yeah.
13 up. So see, it seems like this right here, it got messed up.
it just got messed up there.
And that would cascade forward.
And it would, yes, it would cast it
Well,
forward.
either that or it could be just an estimation. Because it is.
Could be.
totally down.
Yeah, but still, it
But
shouldn't, it
the
shouldn't be
formula's not
going
gonna
down.
do that.
And
And
because the amount of, the number of kids you have, that's all an estimation too.
It is.
You don't really know.
But I mean,
But if you're-
the assumption in a lot of these are, if most of these changes are based on what the guess of what the IPD will change.
Mhm.
And we're expecting the cost of the revenue to be roughly proportional.
Yeah.
On
To me, it's like the weather. I really trust what the weatherman says tomorrow should go, I don't. But next week,
And sometimes it's next. And that's it. And sometimes it's only the next hour.
Um,
The federal.
so, yeah, getting clarity about why the revenue for 25-26 seems to be, is down from 24-25.
And then hardly increases the next year
So,
from this.
Yeah.
From two.
well, there might be something going on.
I'll
with the
ask-
state.
I'll ask her. I'll ask her about that.
I don't know that they.
The other thing, that just going back to the capital projects
Right.
fund transfer. I'll
You need a
I'll find out what she needs. I'll find out what direction she needs from the board. She might simply just need for me to tell her the board is supportive of that. And then she might just have that represented in the budget hearing presentation. The board might see that there. If there needs to be a resolution, then I can prepare that for the board in the June regular meeting. I'll just find out what direction she needs, but my understanding is the board is supportive of that. I'll get clarity about what she needs and have that prepared in the June regular meeting.
So does anybody have any objection or questions still regarding, moving, 200,000 or approximately that amount over to the capital fund?
I think it's the only logical thing to do.
It is, yeah.
If we get some answers for these, can we get that sent out to us ahead of?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll forward that.
I asked if we get some answers to the questions we're asking right now, if we can have that sent out to the whole board as soon as we get the answers, rather than waiting for the next meeting.
Well, also on that, you're talking about moving over 200,000. Should I also get the amount, the total amount of what's actually in it? That way I have comparables of what you're pulling out, just, to move.
What do we know right
And,
now? What
that
is
way
it?
I know what's left and what we're looking at and everything, that way too.
We'll, so we'll see that and be able to have that conversation, because in every month's budget status report, the general fund balance, for the general fund and the capital projects reports are both there every month. So we'll be able to have that conversation in the next regular meeting with that report that she gives us every month.
So it looks like in the March budget report, we had, as of March, we had $953,008.60.
But what's our expected end of year balance? It jumps around because we get revenue.
Well, that doesn't show on here, does it? I'm reading the actual for the year, their column. And I believe that's the report we received in March. I don't know why I don't have April's or May's, but anyway.
Yeah, so our budgeted amount for the end of the year was 842.
Right, but the actual is 9 something, it says here. Actual per year, so 953, could go down though, because,
we get.
yeah, because the year's not over yet, so.
Okay.
So when we get this, each at a regular meeting, when we get a budget report, it's the very bottom number.
Perfect.
Okay, how are we doing, Bob? Are we, did you have anything more on capital projects? So are we, finishing up here with, budget report?
That is everything that I had for the board as far as budget is concerned.
Okay, let me get all my papers organized and we'll go to public comment. Too many versions of the budget here. Okay, we are on to, everybody ready? We'll go on to public comment. Thank you very much for coming. Need, anyone have a public comment right now? Yes.
I have a couple things. So one, I am curious what the policy says about our numbers. Because at one point I was told 15 per class. And then later it was, oh no, it's 40 K8. But we've been over 40 since I've been here. And the 3 through 5 classroom seems to get top heavy every year. Right, Crystal?
Let me
Yeah.
get the numbers we were just looking at because it was,
See,
so Bob was saying this might adjust, but this is showing for 24-25 on K through 2 would be 16. 3 through 5 would be 13, and 6, 7, and 8 would be 17. Coming out of a class of 13 right now, right?
That this year,
That's what's predicted for next year,
Next-
but
okay.
Bob did say that that hasn't been. You know, Liz has been getting a newer number because she's got a survey out or something, yeah. And so that's what we have right now. I don't know if we have a policy, so that's something we'll have to look into.
So you'll see that in that's the non-resident enrollment policy is where the board established that.
Okay, so if we have current students, regardless of what they are, we will not add any more to take it over 15. If there's, is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So what did you say?
All I said is that the non-resident non-resident enrollment policy and procedure is the one that in which the board defined that policy, that enrollment capacity.
Is that by classroom? That was the question, by
Yeah, there's-
classroom,
There's nothing in that.
nothing
by
in there, so we
classroom.
do not have a by classroom policy. Which is pretty hard to do, because you can't send some kids home, you know?
so listening to these numbers, it sounds like Crystal's class, your largest group is in 5th grade, which next year is gonna go into 6th grade. So her numbers, total numbers are gonna go down a little bit, yours are gonna.
But there are other people looking to come into the school too.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And another question,
So regarding the library position, when we did negotiations, part of that was, looking for ways for planning time for teachers if needed. Okay, so we never asked for a certified person in the library. Another thing is, I mean, there's still a ton of books there that need to be entered into the system. Crystal's busy. So we're not utilizing all of our books because it's too hard to get all those things in there by somebody who's teaching all day. And I would not send some of my kids down here by themselves to check.
I was gonna ask.
There are some that I would be responsible enough, but you know, it's nice to have somebody in the library. In the past, we've had somebody in the library who was not certified, who took classes in.
So if a child just was coming down to get a book, the teacher doesn't have to go with them. So there could be a non-certified person here.
Like an individual student.
For what it's worth, I'll kind of interject here. I'm not sure, but I believe that originally we had a librarian, Sally Newell ran the library for years here. And I believe she was part of the PSC union. That is, I don't believe she was certificated. And I believe that was originally a position that was held by our union. And I don't know what happened with that when the new position came up, but I'm pretty sure that that wasn't a certificated position. It was done by someone like a para at that level. So it would be part of the union, not the union, pretty sure. But that'd be something we would probably should check into and see is where the original librarian position was, and then moving forward from there. So whatever that's. worth looking into.
Well, it's definitely something we need to work on and look at our options for.
So could it work out where you had somebody in the library, and then if you needed a certified teacher, then between the three of you, you could work something out where somebody's in here for that reason? That would release.
Well, I
You know what I
mean,
mean?
if I was bringing my whole class, then I would stay.
Well, but what I'm getting at is if you need to leave to go do something else in fact,
Oh,
then you got a certified teacher in here, then you gotta work it out something. That's what I'm trying to do. So, but then you'd want two classes. Teacher.
Right.
That'd be a handy.
yeah,
Well,
it would.
we currently do that, so I share my free time with the K2 classroom.
Yeah.
And so she sends her students in to check out books at the same time my students are in here.
That's what I'm kind of saying, you guys can work it out if you need a certified teacher.
Okay, other public comment?
I have one. So we now have tutors coming in to help students, which is great. Now that the last few weeks of school, that's not great, should have happened way back when. But I was told early in the fall that there were after-school funding, or there was funding available for after-school tutoring. So the tutors that are coming, I'm thinking of one particularly coming to help with math 5 days a week. She's volunteering. So I'm wondering, can that funding that I was told was available for after-school tutoring be used to pay a tutor coming in during school hours? And if so, how can we get that going?
I remember the board saying that we wanted tutors and provided the resources for it. So I think that we should look into that. Do we have two tutors coming in or one tutor coming in? During the day, one or two,
Just one?
On a regular basis,
just one?
is one that I'm aware. If the board does this, okay. So this is public comment. If the board is wanting to go back and have a conversation about budget, then we can do that. But
I think it'd be a good idea to get an answer, given the situation, but we can wait till after public comments over.
because
Thank
it's
you
gonna
very
go back
much.
to
That's a
budget.
very good question.
Maybe that's what that 25,000 is for.
But wasn't there, Mr. Rogers, didn't you tell me that there was funding available for after-school tutoring? That's like, I'm assuming not part of the budget, like it's some other,
That was
Funding?
ESSER COVID relief funds.
and those are still available, they're just waiting to be used?
This is the last year that those are available.
So we've had money available for tutoring and we haven't used it? And our kids are swirling downward? That seems grievous to me. Just speaking as a citizen who's trying to help kids get tutoring.
We had no teachers interested
We
in
need to
working
get
after
this
school
tutor that's in
programs.
here right now for the next.
But we had tutors available.
We will talk about that. We'll continue the budget discussion and get that addressed.
Are those funds still available? No.
For 2 more weeks.
I mean, do we have funds in that account that's still active, like that's still available to us, or is it all spent now?
It's not all spent and through the summer. So ESSER COVID relief funds are available through the summer.
So is it claimed by the summer program? Then have we budgeted it all out for this to cover the summer program?
That's
So we
right,
don't
yes.
have any to pay Lynn from that,
Mhm.
just to get back to the question of paying Lynn and.
It's, having a volunteer tutor is one thing. Creating a position and turning someone into an employee is a completely different process. So if the district is going to want to create a position and then fund that position, that's a completely different thing.
Okay, Thank you. And so we have to do that. We can't just, sorry, just one more follow-up. We can't just contract with someone to tutor. Like a supplemental, not a supplemental.
So
but
you
just
could be a
a
contract employee, you
1099.
could just contract, it doesn't have to be an employee like you are, for example.
And could we use
It
those
could
as
be a
funds to
contract
contract
person.
Lynn?
Just
a
like a,
1099?
you know,
Are there unused ESSER funds? Are we having ESSER funds that are going to waste?
I'm gonna have to ask Kristen for that update.
But it sounds like they are committed to the summer program.
100%.
The board, approved, some funds for the summer program, for summer school program. They approved some funds for, after school opportunities. But an ESSER update is something we can pull together and make sure that it's current, including what is expected potentially to be spent as approved by the board through this year and summer.
So we don't know if there's
I, off the top of my head, no, I haven't seen an updated ESSER report in months.
Yeah,
It's the
'cause-
beginning of the year.
I'm pretty sure we agreed we would come up with money to pay for tutors.
I really.
Yeah. Okay, Greta, you had a question?
I was just noticing like, so I know with one of the other parents pulled in to the 3-5 math time. And that shift has happened, and then Erica does like a after school homework club Tuesday and Thursday. So that is also, I don't know how long she's been doing that. That is happening.
But that's study hall and not tutoring.
They get help with their homework, right?
They need tutoring. I mean,
It's
I'm
not
just,
individual, I think this, that they're not getting the individual attention.
I would trust teachers.
Pardon?
Teacher.
Sure, we're staying on our agenda.
Well, this is public comment, but yeah.
I don't debate.
We try to answer public comment, but you're pointing out that gets us into conversations. The board can't take action because it is a special meeting. But we want to hear that public comment so that we know if it does need board discussion, that it's carried on to the next meeting so we can discuss it further. And Bob keeps notes on that. So thank you very much, because that after school time, all the time is important. Yes.
So I have a question as far as summer school goes. If indeed the administrator is terminated June 30th, so what is your plan for administration during that summer school time?
The board hasn't had an opportunity to discuss that, but we definitely will address that. Personally, I don't know anybody that would do anything different. It'll continue, but I can't answer that for the board. And the board can't discuss that right now. But it's an excellent question. It will get addressed and I'm sure it will get solved. In the budget, as Bob pointed out. Right?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The summer school. She
Oh,
has
she's asking how, she said, what's our plan for administrative responsibilities?
for summer school,
For summer
right?
school.
Yeah, and the board will make sure that it gets taken care of.
Okay, should we clarify that there's not any termination?
Yes. That's just a use of language that isn't exactly accurate, but we'll address that later in the meeting. Okay, any other comments? I will say that I don't think we have a second public comment period because this is a special meeting. And so we're going to be going pretty much down into action items. So if you are thinking about something you'd like to let us know, be sure and let us know now or take notes real quick and give us notes.
Can you, wait,
Pardon?
did you say? Did I miss you stating that there's not an
I said
executive
we're
session
pretty much
going?
moving into action items.
Okay, yeah.
I'm waiting. I wanted to make sure, did we say we wanted to come back to the capital budget or to the budget discussion, or did we address the question?
All I said is that if the board wants to dedicate funds to paying someone, then the position needs to be created, and then the funds, the resources for that would have to be included in the budget. So it's a budget, if the district is talking about paying someone for something, then that would have to be reflected in the budget. You know, and then the position would have to be created. And that's just a different situation than asking for volunteer tutors and facilitating that. That's all I'm saying.
Was there any other budget thing that anyone wanted to? Okay, there isn't, anybody have a need for executive session at this point? Okay, we have no need for an executive session at this point, so we'll be skipping item 5 and going on down to item 6.
Earlier, I had a question, we were gonna address it later. And,
Probably in action items.
We're gonna address what?
back when we were talking about the IT's hours and stuff,
Yeah,
and would that be in the budget?
Yeah.
So. When Doug was hired, what was his hours when he was hired? And now he's like 6 hours a week. Why? Or 3 hours a week, I mean,
6 hours a week.
why is it cut down so far?
I wasn't here when Doug was hired.
Didn't you guys go to a lawsuit over that once? You were here?
I wasn't here when Doug was hired. And Mr. Dyer's been with the district for a very, very long time. The district has changed a lot over that span of time, from being what, when Mr. Saltness was here, it was 80 to 100 kids, almost all out of district. And then when the board changed, and they changed their spending to align with their revenues, and the budget, the district had to go through a couple of years of really, really big cutbacks just to avoid being shut down by the state, essentially. And there were huge cutbacks, and one of those years happened before I was even part of the district. The second round of cuts happened the year that I got hired. Fortunately, we found another revenue stream for the district, and we've been able to start rebuilding. But to your first comment, what were his hours when he got hired? I don't know. That was a long time ago, and well before I was here, and the district was a very different district then. But the second thing you mentioned was about a lawsuit. And when I was talking during staffing, and I talked about the fact that I wanted to reassure the board that the district is within compliance of that. It's called an unfair labor practice. There was a settlement by the district with Mr. Dyer and the PSE. And the district has continued to staff that position within compliance of that settlement. So.
In compliance.
So you mentioned some numbers, what were those numbers?
Well, at the ULP, at the time of that, it was 430 hours. His position needed to be restored to 432 hours.
how much?
For 432 hours.
400, so I thought you said the total was 600 and something.
This year, his position is staffed at 600 hours.
600, okay.
The proposal that you saw in the budget was an increase to 720 hours.
Increase.
That's what you saw in the budget. Yeah, and that's why it was
24,
almost,
25.
that's why it was almost double the current year, because that increase would have qualified him for benefits. And that's just something the board has to recognize, you know, for sometimes, you know, there's additional costs beyond just the hourly wages. And that's not a bad thing. That's how it should be. That's how it should be.
Well, I think,
Just for clarification, when you said this year, you're talking about 23, 24.
23, 24, yeah. So
oh, 23.
I'm just-
24, okay.
No,
That's my clarification.
23-24 was 600. And then
yes,
the yellow line for
Right,
24-25 was 720.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
it right, okay.
But in his explanation, he said this year, when he said 600.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess confusing.
And I think that the important thing is that the job description is accurate and that we can make sure the job description of the hours makes sense, they meld together. And so I think that's, you know, I think that's the most important thing to meet the needs of the students and teachers is to make sure the hours and the job description. I'm probably not explaining it right, but there's enough hours to fulfill the job. And if the job description needs more, then how many more hours does it need? And it looks like we're trying to address that for next year.
I think as I tried to share with the board, the way in which Kristen can provide perspective for the board for districts our size,
Yeah.
what is this position staffed at? And
Yeah.
so she
But
has
then-
access to that. There's also the opportunity for ESD to provide an outside third-party evaluation of that position and the district's needs. This is something that they've offered to do in the past and could do. The board thought that that'd be valuable. I mean, what your point is really valid. We would want staffing level for a position to be appropriate for the demands of the job.
Right.
And we can have a third party, ESD 112, perform for relatively low cost because it's ESD 112, right? It's
Right, yeah.
subsidized, but they can provide a third party evaluation of the position and the district and the needs, and they're really familiar with this. They provide a lot of support for Doug.
Okay,
They look good to have.
well, thanks for bringing that up,
Yeah.
explaining that again for us.
So I'm just, in the context of minutes here, you had indicated we're going to action items, and I'm just gonna capture this as a question about the staffing level of the network administrator.
IT position.
The IT position, right? Okay,
Right,
got it.
all right, any more public comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we're still in our contract currently, we have signed that we will be using our job descriptions in our contract. Those job descriptions do not exist in the contract currently. So I'm not sure what job descriptions you or Bob are referring to, but we do not currently have current job descriptions in our contract. That something will be negotiated and put into our contract this year.
Okay, so that'll be part of it. Well, because I noticed that there were no job descriptions, I asked for the job descriptions and I got job descriptions, so I three-hole punched them and put them in my binder.
That's great. We'll look at those when we do our negotiations.
Okay. And I wasn't sure how old they were, accurate they were, and, you know, hence my questions on that, so.
Have you started the negotiations?
We have not.
You know, when
We're waiting to see.
Okay, so let's move on to action items, and the first one is the 24-25 contracts. We haven't seen those yet. What are you gonna
So-
tell us about them?
Well, that they are established by the negotiated and approved salary schedule for all the certificated positions. That this salary amount for the 24-25 was established in that negotiation process.
Okay, are there any hour changes at all to any of them?
The only change was the one that I mentioned earlier, and that is the increase from the art position from 0.4 to a 0.5 is required for the courses for TCI and MS.
So if you wanna pass them down, I'll entertain a motion.
When you said certified, you're talking about the certified teacher.
Teachers, yep, certificate, yep. That's right, only teachers. So the only change would be that the K-1-2 position is vacant. So that's why I mentioned also during staffing that vacancy still exists. But that is the only contract that would be like missing at this point compared to the current year. Because of her leave of absence.
They're not one in the pile there for.
That's right. Every other teacher, every other contract is a teacher has been with us for this year. Yep. Mhm. So, and also while you're looking at those, if you want to, I mean, but the budgeted amount is something that the board has seen in current budget worksheet and the previous budget worksheet because we've known that amount because it was negotiated. So the salary schedule is already approved, the positions are already approved.
Okay, we have, certified contract for an elementary school teacher. Contract days 180, base salary 70,698.01. Second elementary teacher, 180 days, base salary 96,011. Secondary English instructor, 180 days, base salary 71,947. Secondary mathematics instructor, 180 days, 105,350. Secondary technology instructor, 180 days, salary 100,211. I'm not reading the cents. Because it don't make any sense. A secondary science instructor, 180 days, $95,072. A secondary history instructor, 144 days. Base salary 68,956. Thought we were gonna increase that.
Let you guys know.
Elementary secondary art instructor, 90 days, 31,259. Secondary elementary Spanish instructor, 90 days, 38,543. Secondary elementary health and PE instructor, 108 days, 51,717. Secondary elementary music teacher, 72 days, 30,155.
What point were you gonna change it?
I believe that we had asked what the impact would be, and could we see in the budget having the secondary history instructor be full-time? And so I guess that hasn't been discussed, and we didn't see that.
Can I address that?
Sure.
Yeah, so with our PCIA students, we have a schedule of courses that are needed. There are a few electives, really not very many, we're so small. And one of the things that was established in the bargaining, with the Mill Area Education Association is the number of courses, the number of classes an instructor would teach or be assigned to be full-time. And so that's been established in the collective bargaining agreement. This current position that you're referring to, this instructor taught 2 classes this current year, first semester, and 2 classes this current year, second semester, is scheduled to teach 3 classes, both first and second semester next year. In the collective bargaining agreement with the Mill Area Education Association, it was established that a full-time position would be one who has 4 classes and or 16 instructional periods during a day. And so in the review of the comprehensive review of the staffing levels and the contracts to make sure that, as was the case with our art instructor, that there wasn't a misalignment. We didn't want to be paying someone at a 0.4 when really what they needed for the classes we needed them to teach between the 2 schools was more. So conducted that analysis. And for this year and for next year, that position doesn't meet that defined requirement.
When we had 4 classes, we had state history, world history, and 2 social studies or social science classes. Is that what we had? When there were 4?
That position has changed quite a bit. And part of it is that we've gone from Clark College to Lower Columbia College. I think that position is still with Lower Columbia College, but the courses that were being offered have changed over the past couple of years. One of the changes, both here and at the state level, is that Washington State history is no longer a high school course. It's a middle school course. But all of that to say is that the courses required for that position don't justify a full-time position. And so if we wanted more history taught, how do we work it into the class structure? We have kids who don't even know what Memorial Day is for. And now they don't have to have Washington State history. So I realize that's a state issue. I realize that, no, let me finish. I know it's a state issue. I know our classroom schedule is full. But I'm just asking, if we wanted more history, do we have any way of accommodating that? Well, I think as far as the board is concerned, and since the board manages policy, the credit requirements by subject matter are defined by the board. And so if the board wanted to establish a requirement for history and social studies that was greater than what is required by the state, and sometimes districts do this. Sometimes districts say, oh yeah, the state requires this much, but we're gonna require more of our students. That's happened at times.
But we don't want it to take away from the collegiate classes our students want.
As far as the board is
Is there a
concerned,
balance?
the board within that policy could establish a greater requirement.
Or an option, a greater requirement or a greater opportunity, right? It could be either one. We can establish a policy that we want additional opportunities for students.
But if we don't have the students that want to take them, then therein lies the problem.
Well, it depends on whether you make it mandatory or an option.
Sure.
Yeah, So we do have those choices. That's something we can look at doing if we choose to do so.
And if we change things from here,
You can change it.
we can change the contract.
That's right, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the contracts as outlined? Or,
I'll move to accept the contract as that one.
Seconded.
it's been moved and seconded to accept the contracts as I read them. Are there any further discussions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, we are on to approval of the Dean of Students Academic Advisor Contract.
This position. The salary for this position was increased by IPD. As I think, as was the case with the certificated employees also.
The same IPD.
Oh, yeah, there's only, yep, the only,
State
the
level.
state level, yep. So no other change to the contract, to the requirements, to the hours, to the staffing level, IPD. Increase.
And do we have a job description for this contract?
Yes, we do.
Could you add that to the list to make sure we get a copy of that next meeting, please?
Yes, yes, of course. So I know that Lisa has been collecting those. Has she not shared those with you
I
yet?
don't have that one, no. I have the ones that go with the contract, with the classified contract.
Okay, I'll make sure that
But
she shares
I don't have,
that
this one is
collection.
not a part of the classified contract. Yeah.
That's right.
Anita, I did send you my job description in an email. Do you remember?
You did, and it was just the list of bullets. That's all it was. So I'm sure there's a more formal format, don't you think?
That is 2-page. Yes.
That is it, just a list of bullets.
Thanks for clarifying.
Next time, can we have somebody just read it?
Copy in advance?
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah, I mean.
So it doesn't say anything about what contract we're signing? What the contract is?
That's it?
Their leave?
That's the contract here.
Well, I mean, what they're gonna do for that money?
No, we don't have a copy of the job description. I received a list of bullets. I didn't know that was the job description. And I didn't bring it with me. Well, actually, I think I might.
Hmm.
No, I don't have it with me. Um, So this job is an important job with the district. It's a job that is part of our administrative structure of the district. And it is a possibility that our administrative structure may have changes coming up this year. And I think my personal feeling is we need to have in here the ability to ensure that based on any future administrative structure that we may have with the new and different administration, that we may need the ability to modify the job description for this position. And if we do that, I want to make sure that this contract includes that ability. I would suggest we might want to wait to approve this contract so that we have the opportunity to research the possible changes or have the ability to make changes. Can you put something, a line in there like that?
For the job description to evolve or duties of assignment or something.
Yeah,
Well, and for one thing, if you're gonna have a job description, it'd be nice to be able to adjust the job description too.
The contract you guys are signing is for the hours for that position as they're currently stated. The contract is the hours themselves. The job description is absolutely something completely different. The contract says, we're gonna pay this person so many hours for this job that is elsewhere described. So that contract is different than a job description. It's absolutely independent of the two.
so they're totally independent.
Absolutely.
Any change in administrative structure could have a change in a job description and not impact or violate the contract.
Correct. However, the contract might be something that you do want to be able to change. If the change in the job description narrows, as an example, you would want to be able to then curtail that narrowing in the actual contract that says you're on the line for that much money for that position.
Okay, so it says that the employee, which is good, it says the employee will perform the duties per the related job description and district policy manual. But that doesn't prohibit us from making modifications should that become the desire of the district.
Modifications to their job description, yes, but I would question how you could modify their contract.
Yeah, I'm not asking about,
Yeah,
but
okay.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have.
So they're totally separate.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's very good to know. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so this is the academic advisor, dean of students for 205 days for 94,785. Is there a motion to approve this contract for 205 days at this salary?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the contract, just here described, all in favor? No, I'm sorry, any further discussion?
I thought we were addressing it to where we can change it, put some verbiage in there that we can make changes easy.
We can decide, we can change the policies, job descriptions, we can change what the role is.
So if we approve this, we can change the job description and it wouldn't be weird. Administrative structure that might be designed. It could be we, but we can't change the number of days that they're employed for, and these days are from July through June, so it's for a 12-month period. And we can't adjust that at all once we approve it.
Yep. I have a question.
It'd be a negotiation.
Is there a hurry on this?
No, there's not a rush on this.
I need to-
It needs to be, it needs to be approved by the board before the end of the month. Is that
So we
contract?
have a meeting in 2 weeks, so, yeah, I skimmed through reading it, so I'd like to really read it better before I say yes.
There's a motion and a second.
Yeah, right, we're at the discussion.
We're at the discussion point, so we can
Mhm.
vote the motion down and then bring it back up at the next regular meeting on the 20th of June.
So somebody would just have to table their motion.
No, I think I think by Robert's Rules of Order, we have to vote it down, but I've seen removals of seconds of motions before, but.
Like,
Sometimes we get pretty informal. Somewhere I'm positive our next meeting is June 20th, but. Is that right? You have that, usually I have the list at the end here.
No, it's 17th.
It's the 17th.
Oh, is it June 17th? Well,
2 weeks
I'm
from
sure
today.
glad I double checked with you. So June 17th is our regular meeting. So, all in favor, say aye.
Well, what's the
Wait,
motion?
what's
What's
the
the motion?
There was a motion on the floor and a
To
second.
approve it.
Okay.
I see.
Okay, thank you.
All opposed? Nay.
Dang.
Nay.
Did
you guys
sorry.
vote?
No.
So instead of backing up, we're voting it down and then we'll bring it back up again.
Robert's Rules of Order say you can't withdraw your second and withdraw your motion, so I just asked to have.
We can move to postpone, I think it's second motion.
I just need clarity on what happened.
Post what?
Postpone this motion.
It's already been seconded.
Yeah, it'll be under discussion and somebody else can move it. And then everybody can vote.
Moving to table.
So that's why I asked for clarity about the the motion.
Table's supposed to be within the same.
That's fine with me too. Robert's Rules of Order says we can just not vote and we'll table it till the next meeting. That is. That fits our needs.
I'm going to postpone the,
There's a new motion.
it's a secondary motion. I vote to postpone vote on this motion until our next meeting.
Well, yeah, I think that's what I said, but it's probably not right.
Moved and seconded.
Who seconded
So who
that?
second? Oh.
Okay, all in favor, say
Aye.
aye.
Postpone.
I,
Okay. Motion passes. We'll take this up on the next regular meeting. The next item. Somewhere in my multitude of documents. Which I know is right here, extremely important item.
Was she looking for that? When that stack of certificate contracts come back?
Right here.
And passes back to-
Did you bring your copy of this? Agreement?
No.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You got your copy, you got your
I've got
copy.
mine.
Okay, the board has received a resignation and release agreement. It's been received and signed by Mr. Rogers. Is there any, it's presented to us for our acceptance, review and acceptance. Are there any, is there any discussion? You want me to give you a copy?
Yeah.
Think everybody's had a chance to read it? Anybody have any questions or clarifications? Okay, the acceptance motion, should somebody make such a motion, needs to include signature by the chair representing the board. Is there a motion to accept the resignation and release agreement between the district and Mr. Rogers that has been presented to us and signed by Mr. Rogers?
I move that we, accept this, agreement, resignation and release agreement. That is.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
We have you sign
Yes, that,
on behalf of. the board.
yes, we won't all sign it. I signed it on behalf of the board, so we need to make sure that's included as part of the motion, because this is a formal motion that will be in the minutes, of course.
I second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the resignation and release agreement signed by Mr. Rogers and authorizing the signature of the chair? Agreement is between Mr. Rogers and the Mill School District. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Should I say congratulations? Okay, I will sign that and bring you a copy. So that you bring it up and have Lisa make copies.
Yep.
Okay.
If you sign that,
And we'll sign that.
we'll get copies.
So, we also have approval of plans of support for teachers and OTF placement, which you explained to us earlier what that means.
That's right.
Is there a document we need to sign for
Nope.
that?
No, there's not.
So so. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the plans for support teachers who are under an OTF placement. And that includes Liz, Margaret, and sorry, the instructor's name? Kim?
Ms. Giles. Yeah, Annie Giles.
Okay.
What is OTF?
OTF is out of field placement. That means they're working not in their trained field. Is that kind of a layman's explanation?
But really, all of them are teaching in their field. They just had conditional certificates.
Okay.
They will, two of them will become certified next year, right?
One already is,
Yeah.
one already is,
Okay.
and then the second will.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve these placements?
I move that we approve, plans to support the teachers with OTF.
All right, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept these approval plans. All in favor say, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Before we adjourn, I want to make sure that you guys all brought your materials to be shredded. I'll bring those up for Lisa to run through the shredder tomorrow, Bob.
Yep.
And I have 2 letter drafts that I'll pass out to you. Yes. Go right ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Before you adjourn, I want to ask a question.
Okay, I just have 2 letters that they didn't get out to you in advance for you to look at, so I'll just give those to you so we can approve them at the next meeting. And go ahead and talk, Bill, while I get these ready to pass out.
Miss Erica kind of requested that when we replace her, she kind of wanted,
No, yeah,
so she kind of wanted to be involved in finding her replacement. I was wondering if that was possible, we could allow her to be in on that, or. I mean, she's a good teacher and she loves the kids and.
Oh, yeah, Well, when I spoke with her about that previously, then, yeah, I provided that assurance. How that plays out going forward will be likely out of my hands.
These are the two letters. There's a set for you and a set for Keith.
Thank you. Thank you.
So on the letter to Mr. Van Duzer, that's required that we document our action by letter. And so I drafted up a letter to go to him. You don't have to read them now because they're not on the agenda. We'll have them on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments or anything for the agenda for the next meeting? Do you have anything else, Bob, we need to make sure we remember for the next meeting or that the board should be thinking about?
Not at this time.
Okay. Move to adjourn.
8:26.